Good morning, Daryl.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. First off, thank you for doing this interview and your willingness to share your remarkable story. I think for anyone in the region here, Ottawa, Gatineau, and beyond, who knows you as a combat sports athlete, a grappler, Brazilian jiu-jitsu competitor, knows your story. And you recently had heart surgery. How are you feeling? How's the recovery going?
Um, Recovery is going better than expected. So my actual surgery was August 13th. It was a valve replacement and a they fixed I had a hole in my heart from the last surgery, like some damage from the last surgery they couldn't fix. So this surgery was very successful. He was able to put in a new valve and fix the hole. Um, I did a lot of work going up to the surgery, like walking and stretching and trying to stay positive. And then the surgery was successful. And then I only spent 4 days in the hospital. So I was expected to stay 10 plus days. So I'm very happy that I got out of there as fast as possible. And the Ottawa Heart Institute is amazing. Um, I can't believe how hard all the people that work there work super hard. So I think that's a testament to how fast I was able to recover and get out. So today, for example, I have two 25-minute walks to do, and the rest is recovery because like I'm still pretty beat up from the surgery. It was only been like I think this is week three, so
Wow.
it's it's a challenge, but it's going much better than my last surgery. So I'm very thankful and grateful for everything.
Outstanding. I think anyone who's hearing this who knows you is very happy to hear that. Just a quick follow-up, if you don't mind me asking. You said that in the lead up to this surgery, you did a lot of work and preparation. I'm curious to know how much of that work has assisted the overall process as far as the surgery, and what did it do for you in terms of mentally preparing yourself now for your third surgery?
So um, I found out in December, December 2023 that I was going to need another surgery, and the valve was like failed. I didn't realize I had a hole in my heart from the surgery. I like my cardiologist knew that, but I didn't. And then when I met with the surgeon in March, he told me that he was going to have to redo what he did last time, and it was going to be a risky operation and all this stuff. And I, uh, I did a little bit of reading, and I'm hyper, so I like I mentioned, I have ADD, and I I have lots of energy, but your heart is failing, when your heart is failing, your whole body is failing. So it was very hard, but I didn't really have any symptoms. So I just did daily walks. And when I first started doing walks, I could barely do like half an hour without having to catch my breath. And then leading up to the surgery, I could walk for an hour without having any problems. And I did a lot of mobility stretching so that because they open your chest. So like I tried to do everything that I could to have the most success, but I guess out of fear, because like I was afraid, there was 10% mortality. So like 10% chance that I wouldn't make it. So I was very sort of fearful of that. And just stayed positive and daily walks and exercise. And I was off work from February 6th to like I'm still off work. So um, I just tried to focus on what I could control and tried to keep a good attitude. And I did post a lot of my journey, but like everyone has good days and bad days. So like I posted on Facebook just in text format, and it sort of built my strength going into the surgery. I don't know how physical my improvements were, but my mental toughness improved going into the surgery. And I think that helped a lot.
It's incredible because you did document a lot of this, as you mentioned, on social media. We've seen, particularly on Facebook, we've seen, you shared your health journey there on various posts, and I'm curious to know what kind of feedback are you getting and have gotten from friends, family, and the entire combat sports community here in Ottawa, Gatineau, and beyond.
Oh man, the response has been pretty amazing, and like my close friends, most of my friends do jujitsu or do have done MMA, and most of my family, I'm kind of like the black sheep in the family of my personal like family, but my wife's family has been amazing, and just like people who I used to train with, or even people that I fought before, uh, kind of reached out and gave me some like like positive reinforcement, just saying like cheering me on, and I grow stronger from that, and I am so thankful for everybody in the Ottawa community, and also some of the people in um, Toronto, Montreal area who kind of know me through grappling, and some of competitors that I've competed against have reached out and really like cheered me on, and like it boosts my spirits the whole time. Like I don't post anything negative ever. Like I try my hardest not to, but I also try to live that way just because I it's one of the reasons for fighting is it's an outlet, and I have like the darkness, but like you try to like a dark, you know what I mean? Like
Of
you
course,
have
of course. Yeah,
that
yeah,
stress, that darkness, that's
yeah.
kind of anger, and you need to channel it into a better outlet.
Right.
And I think I try my very best. Like I will never talk. I will try my very best not to talk poorly about anybody. I don't. I try my hardest not to talk poorly about myself,
Hmm.
because like when you say things about yourself that's negative, it makes it happen. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
If you
Hmm.
if you give yourself like, hey, I'm the greatest, even if you're not the greatest, but you say I'm the greatest, I'm going to do my best, and all this stuff, your body will believe that you're doing, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
In combat sports, I've fought a lot and I've lost a lot, but I always believe I could win, and I believe that it's just like you know you I've never been hurt doing any of my sports like seriously, but my heart has been kind of my heart has been like a weakness like my whole life, because my first surgery was in 20 uh the year 2000 or 2001, and then it never healed properly, and then in 2013 that was the big one, and I didn't realize I even had residual damage from that surgery. So now that it's all fixed, now I'm healing, but like I immediately noticed a difference uh, in my in the way that I actually feel. Besides being a bit beat up from the surgery,
Hmm.
I haven't felt this good in a very long time. So I don't know if that's attributed to all the people who pushed me and supported me, or if it's just like self talk. You know what I mean?
Wow. It's incredible, man. And I think you shared your story as far as your jiu-jitsu story, your combat sports story, but also your recovery, your health journey that is on social media, and you've gotten a lot of responses. And I think, health issues are generally very, very personal, obviously, but you've made it very public, and I'm sure you sparked a lot of conversations with people in your community, but also motivated people, because it takes a lot of, dare I say, it takes a lot of heart to to push and work through these challenges, these health challenges. And as you mentioned, you've had three heart surgeries, and you're always positive and you're always uplifting, and you're sticking to the dream, and the sport that you love, and I mean it's really, I think it's really important to highlight that. And I thank you again for doing this interview. Initially, I didn't know if I wanted to reach out and talk to you about this, but I didn't know, what I'm saying? Like it's a very personal one, and I'm trying to be obviously respectful, but I also recognize that these are the sorts of stories that are so unique and important to hear, because it's you're a true competitor. Obviously, you fought amateur MMA, you fought Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you've wrestled. Everyone knows your history in these sports, but in life too, you fought and you've won. And I think it's important to highlight that, and the character of someone that has such resilience, in life, because we can all, I think, as we grow older, recognize, excuse me, recognize that the going gets tough, and we have to dig deep if we know how to dig deep, and build that resilience through our life experience. Sorry for the rant there, but or that long sentence, but I mean what I say, of course. My next question for you is, after your second heart valve surgery in 2013, as you mentioned, you had to rebuild yourself in jiu-jitsu, right? How did this phase affect you as a competitor? And then I have two follow-ups. How did it change your game, and how did you handle it?
So the 2013 surgery was really scary just because I was so sick. When I went in, like, so for example, it was an emergency. So, for example, I remember the day because on a Friday, it was Friday, like in June sometime, and I wasn't feeling very good. And I think the Ottawa Open was on the Saturday, like a jiu-jitsu tournament. And I wanted to compete, but I was so sick, so I withdrew from the tournament. But I went to go watch, and I saw people in the community, and they're like, "Man, you look horrible. Like, you look sick. You should go to the hospital." All this stuff. So I was like, "Okay, I'll go on Monday." So on Sunday, I went for a walk, and I could barely walk down the street. I would walk to Farm Boy to get my groceries with my wife, and I had to stop and sit on the bench. And it's not very far from where I lived, and I didn't feel good at all. On Monday, I called in sick to work, and I worked for my dad. So I told my dad, "Hey, I'm not coming into work today. I feel sick. I'm going to the doctor." He's like, "If you don't have a doctor's note, don't come back to work." And I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, you've missed a lot of work this year. And if you miss Monday and you don't have a doctor's note, you're fired." So
Wow.
I was like, well, I was so sick, it didn't really phase me that much. I just thought he was just being tough. So I went to the urgent care, and urgent care did a bunch of tests, and they're like, right to like basically like get to the heart institute. And then on the Thursday, I had the surgery.
Wow.
So they're like, yeah, you'll probably like, it was a real scary information. It was a Facebook post because I thought I was going to die. So I posted like a thing like, if I see, I see. If I don't, I'll see you on the other side. And my Facebook exploded. And my poor wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but she's my wife now, and she had to deal with all that stuff. And
Wow.
the like whole bunch of people came and visited me in the hospital when I was like snuck in, and I was like out. I was in there for 6 weeks or something. But after my surgery, I had antibiotics till October, and I was just focused on what I'm doing now. So like walking and trying to be positive. And I went back to jujitsu in January, but after I got cleared and everything, I went back to jujitsu, and my goal was, oh, I'll just do technique. And then I started getting the competition edge, and I had a tissue valve, so I wasn't on any medication. Once I was healed, I was just taking an aspirin every day, and doing my cardio and doing my strength training and doing jiu-jitsu and working and I loved it. I love all the people on my team. I love all the people in the community. I had my first tournament back at the Ontario Open, and so my journey took from 2013. My next time I competed was 2015, I believe, and I did the Ontario Open, but I gained some weight and I was fighting at heavyweight. So like I think that's I was 210, but I was like a small 210 and I placed third at the Ontario Open in the Masters division. Um, it sounds good, but really it's not good because I lost my first match. I lost my first match to the guy who came first, but I had a real fun time competing and I was doing my best. And then in June, I did the Ottawa International, I think. It was in June right after that, and I cut weight to
In June
um,
of 2015, yeah?
that's right. And
Right.
then I fought in the weight class under at Masters, and I won my first match, and then I lost my second match in my division, and then I did the Open division, and then I won my first match, and then I lost in the final, and I had so much fun. And there's a picture on my Facebook where it's like a podium pic with Nick is first place, I'm second place, and then the other people are in third place because that's how like the podium works or whatever. There's always like first, second, then two people at third or however that works because it's single elimination. But the experience after all the work and the heart surgery and all that stuff was really amazing. And that was probably not my best performance, but my most satisfying performance to be able to do it.
Mhm.
And then I competed a few more times and realized, holy man, I'm not as athletic as I was. Like I kind of lost I lost that explosiveness. So I had to learn how to play guard. I had to learn like I couldn't just wrestle people and be athletic anymore. I had to kind of rebuild from the ground up that way. So that was 2 years from my surgery, and then my game, like you said, my rephrasing my game was learning how to play on the bottom and also transition from being a competitor to a hobbyist, which was very challenging for me. But I love the sport so much that I was able to switch gears. I don't know if that answers your question. Sorry, I
No,
tried to
no,
keep it.
you don't need to apologize. This is fascinating. I have two follow-ups for you. You just mentioned that transition from being a competitor to a hobbyist. Can you
Yeah.
kind of educate us on that? Well, how do we differentiate a competitor from what I guess what's the mindset for you when you think I'm a competitor vis-a-vis I'm a hobbyist in jiu-jitsu?
So when you're competing, and I believe, and this is the thing, I think everybody should compete at least once, just to see if you like it. And if you don't like it, it's all good. But I love competing. I love being in the fight. I love going 100%. But as my health was kind of declined a little bit, I can't go 100%. So I had to sort of like I was a purple belt, so I still want to get my brown belt. I still wanted to get my black belt in 2016, 17, and I competed a few more times just because I thought that I could do it. I always believed I could do it, and then when I had some losses and some of my training camps were very difficult. So a competitor, you need to train all the time, and I wouldn't say always 100%, but you need to play your A game all the time. And then you have to do like situational rolling. And my background from wrestling is kind of like that. You need to train differently as a competitor. You need to sort of like work your like for example, what I did, I would work my three best takedowns I would work situational rolling where I'm in a bad position and I have to get out. I get beat up, like it's hard. It's 100% of training and then drilling and doing your A game. So you're not really learning too much, but you're doing your strategy for your comp and you're working your favorite submissions, you're working your favorite takedowns, you're working your favorite guard pass, and then you're working like from bad positions to escape and it's a very like um grueling process and you need good training partners to like beat you up.
Hmm.
Whereas a hobbyist, you know, you might train. I ultimately I'd like to train more, but like going to class and doing like studying jujitsu and opening like studying different things that you may not be good at. So like for example, as a competitor, I worked my favorite takedown, my favorite guard pass, and then I'm a half guard. I play half guard all the time. So whether I'm half guard on the top or half guard on the bottom, that my A game is my competitor game. But as a hobbyist, I would play more recreational. Maybe I train 2, 3 times a week, if my life allows, like if I'm allowed to, or like if I don't have work, or if I'm just going in, doing the class and getting physical exercise and learning different parts of jiu-jitsu and sort of enjoying the process a little bit more. And if I don't feel like I'm up for the roles, like I might do 1 round in, 1 round off, and I'm happy with my performance. You don't really, there's no pressure, you know?
Right.
And that would be the difference. Being a hobbyist, I really enjoyed it at brown belt because of like kind of getting back through jiu-jitsu at brown belt from 2019 to 2022. I really just played around and sort of tried to work on being just being on the mat and helping people,
Hmm.
but also like learning new things. Like I played around with different techniques and sort of like, you know, if I lost in training, well, no problem. Or like my ego kind of went out the door. I was just kind of having fun, enjoying my time with my friends on the mat, and it wasn't a very hard decision. It wasn't a very hard transition for me, just because I love training so much.
Right. Just two quick follow-ups, if you don't mind. What are your three best takedowns? And from there, I have an additional one in regards
Sure.
to an additional question. Go ahead, please.
My favorite takedown. So I don't know how
Three,
to.
three. I think you mentioned you
Oh,
had
I have.
three.
I love takedown. So I love wrestling. I love judo, and so when I transition to, I'll do the gi takedowns because
Sure,
like
sure.
the first one was Sotogari. Um, I landed a lot as a white belt or a blue belt. Then I really like the shoulder throw.
Nice.
I can't remember what you call it in Japanese. I think it's a Ponsanagi or something like that. But in wrestling, it's just a shoulder throw,
Right.
and it works really well with the gi. You just might, if you mess up, they might take your back. But I really liked it, and I also liked takedowns like ankle picks, single leg takedowns.
Nice.
I
I could see the shoulder throw you and Osoto as well. I could see you execute that because because of because you mentioned especially in the heavyweight because you're what 5'8", 5'9", right?
no, I always thought I was 5'9", but I'm actually 5'7".
Oh, you're five. Oh, wow. Even better because as far as
Yeah.
in that division as a heavyweight with the shoulder throw,
Um,
Seoinage and so on, like I could totally see that being your go-to as
but
well as Osoto. Please continue.
but I had way more success with. So those are my favorite throws, but the takedown that was most successful for me was actually like a single leg or
Okay,
like a collar drag to single leg.
nice.
And then that way, if I messed up, I'm just playing half guard, so it's not a big deal. Like I could always from half guard, I could wrestle up. So I like single legs or like collar drags. Uh, I know it sounds like someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, um, anyway, it doesn't really matter. But those were my high success rates. But I
Mhm.
also had a lot of success with Kataguruma.
Oh
So
wow, of course. That
like
makes
a
sense. Yeah.
fireman's carry, and that was something that I learned. Like I knew how to do it in wrestling, so no gi, but I didn't know how to do it with the gi on.
Okay.
And I used to do it all the time, but like you have so much trial and error,
Hmm.
and I would fail and fail and fail and fail and fail all the time in training. And then I started to land it in tournaments, and it's a good feeling when you fail all the time, and then all of a sudden they start having success.
Mm.
It's it was something I'm very proud of, and like I believe even now I could hit uh that Kataguruma or that fireman's all the time. Like now, like against really good people, I could really set it up nice and land it a lot. So that's something I'm very proud of.
You know, it's interesting because I seen you compete. I believe it was at a Sub X a few years ago, more than a few years ago. Pardon me. I think you were facing off against Dan Lariviere.
Yep.
And I remember seeing you compete then. I think that was 16, right? 2016
Yeah,
or
it was around
20.
that time.
Right, right.
Um, and that was a
I sorry, go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead. I do have a follow-up in regards to,
No, just answer because
yeah,
I'll answer it all together.
sure. Oh, you want me to ask the question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in terms of, so it's interesting because over, you're obviously a black belt, and you've got, you're a student of the game, as you mentioned. You absorb a lot of content, you do your reading, you're very meticulous, as far as from what I've seen of your posts and your training routines and so on, and curious to know, knowing what you know now. This is 2024. Yeah, 2024. I had to think for a second there. Um, Knowing what you know now about yourself, your grappling, and your entire experience in all these sports, if you were to go back to 2013, what would you tell your former self in terms of that rebuilding and retraining phase in jiu-jitsu post your second surgery? What would you highly recommend yourself if you could?
Oh, I think I think I would have done a better job. I would tell myself, "Hey, man, you got to enjoy." Like, I think I would have started out to be a hobbyist a
Hmm,
lot faster. Just,
interesting.
just kind of relating to how I feel now. I didn't realize how weak I was even in 2015. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't realize how bad my heart was
Right.
at the time. Even when I competed, like when I did the sub X and everything, I didn't realize how my heart was damaged. And I think if I would go back in time, I think I would probably start being a hobbyist a lot sooner
Mm,
and enjoying the process a little bit sooner. So if I went back in time to myself and I would say, "Hey, man, you're going to get back on the mat. Let's just have fun and don't put so much pressure on yourself and just play with your friends." And if I would to compete, I think I would try to compete closer to a lighter weight. I
mm,
think I was a pretty not big guy, but I'm stocky, and I think that was not a good move. I think I should have worked more diligently on nutrition and got lighter and competed closer. Even if I was competing at heavyweight, if I was still lighter, I think it would put less strain on my heart. But it's all woulda, shoulda, coulda.
right, right.
So there's not much I could do differently. I don't think. I think I do like to eat,
We all do,
and
yeah.
and this is a thing. But generally, I think I would put more effort into staying lighter.
Mm.
Maybe I would have squeaked out a few more years before this last surgery, but everything went well, so I can't really complain about it. I don't think outcomes would be any different. Uh,
It,
and it it is sorry, it is what it is.
right. No, absolutely. It's really interesting what you said there about that transition to being a hobbyist, much earlier. And just a quick point in regards to that whole hobbyist recreational scene. I think it's fascinating for this sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whether it's in Ontario or Canada, if I can say. There's a huge community. I think the numbers of recreationals, hobbyists, is especially over 30, is massive in this sport. I think it's even bigger. I don't have the numbers. I shouldn't say this. I probably need to look into it, but I'm just gonna guess and say I think the number of recreational hobbyists over 30 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, gi or no gi, is probably higher than wrestling, boxing, and judo combined. Like I'm talking recreationalists, male and female, just due to the sheer number of gyms, academies, training centers, dojos, whatever you want to call them across if it's Ottawa-Gatineau or the province of Ontario. But there's a lot of recreationalists and hobbyists, and at the end of the day, whether someone decides to compete or not, I think is a very personal one. And I think you're right. One should compete at least once to see, what their skills are like in a real tournament. But there's a lot of extremely talented hobbyists out there that don't compete, who get their belt promotions and develop their game. And it's fascinating to observe, and it takes a long time for them to obviously get promoted, but they put in the time. My next question for you is, before I ask, in '06, how much did you weigh when you were training in 2006? Like, well, what were you,
Uh,
like,
uh,
155?
no, no, so my journey from 2006 is like I finished wrestling in college, and I just lift weights and did some cardio, and I was noticing myself getting pretty pudgy.
Hmm.
Like, it's like that freshman 40 or whatever but like when you finish university and you're an athlete, but you still keep eating like an athlete, but you're not active.
Hmm.
So I gained quite a bit of weight. I was like 220 or something like that. And I was pretty pudgy at 5'7". And I didn't really like doing just going to the gym. It was very boring. So I found martial arts and I was like, hey, and then I like right just from training immediately because it's cardiovascular. I went from like 220 to 200. And then I think 2006, I was probably like by the time I got my blue belt. So from when in 2006 I started training, in 2007 I got my blue belt, and I went from 200 to probably I want to say 170.
Nice.
I think. And so I competed. I did compete in 2007. I went to Worlds, uh, just for the experience, and I think I competed at one. I think I weighed 174 or something like that. So I don't know
Okay.
if I compete. I think I competed at 181, and I didn't cut weight because I was very nervous about, if you go to a real big tournament like that and you miss weight, you're just disqualified. So
Hmm.
like I didn't want to travel all that way and then be disqualified. So I just fought up a weight class. But I think I was like 174. So or 174, 173. And I kind of stayed at that weight for most of my when I was in shape to do MMA, or when I was in shape. And then my weight tends to, because I like food, it tends to gravitate towards 190. Like I try not to go over 195, but there are times when I'm like 210 pounds.
Hmm.
Uh, and I just like to eat a lot. And this is my new challenge, is to try not to try to give my heart a little bit of a break, and I'm going to try to stay a lot lighter as I get older, because that was not. I know my first gi. So my first gi was an A5, and then when I was competing in good shape, I went from A4 to A3, and then my best shape that I have is like A2. So I got all the way down to like 160. My happy weight where I feel the best is like 163, 164.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
Very interesting. It's interesting because, when people drop weight, there's a tendency, I suppose, to say that like people's game, especially their technique, their overall, regardless of the sport, almost has to increase as they drop weight. You know what I mean? Because it seems, I know I'm generalizing here, folks, but the heavier you go, sometimes there's less dependency. There is technique, absolutely, but it's not as maybe not as dependent. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But the lower you go in weight, this is just from a point as an observer of some of these sports. It's like, man, you look at the lightweights, man. It's like
oh yeah, like
it's
the
always
most.
incredible technique. It's like mind-blowing technique, precision, timing, finesse, all of the above, because there's no room for error, right? I mean, there's power, there's explosiveness, there's endurance, but the technique I find, and it's not to say you don't find technique, you find them across the board in all divisions, but I think to really get the best picture, in my opinion, is always to go to the lighter weights. What are your thoughts on that generalizing
Yeah,
statement?
it's so because I've competed at a lot of different weight classes.
Mm,
Uh, Heavyweight, like over 200, is kind of like not like ultra heavy. I can't speak to that, but I know the one under that. So like heavyweight, I found the easiest. I don't want to say the easiest division, because the guys are monsters.
mhm.
Like you deal with a different problem at the super heavy weight, whereas they're like a little bit slower, but man, they're stronger and heavy, and their pressure is much worse.
Right.
When I went, the hardest division I believe for myself that I've ever competed as 190, the light heavy
Okay.
division in
Okay.
jiu-jitsu is very, very hard, because you get people who are tall
Hmm.
and super strong, but also very technical,
Right.
like technically, like tall, lanky guys who weigh about 193 or 190 ish, and are just strong and fast and technical.
Right.
Uh, and then when you go to 181, I find an easier time. Uh, Not that the skill is a little bit different; they play a little bit different, but they're not as strong and as those big guys. That light heavy is the hardest division for me. And then when I cut down to lighter than that, this so the like 72 kilos, it's almost like you get the most volume of people,
That's
and you
it.
also
Yeah.
get, and you also get the, like in college wrestling, the 74 kilo division. So I wrestled at 69 kilos. Um, and it was very challenging because there's so many competitors, but there's also so much speed
Hmm.
and technical precision, and it's very, very fast.
That's
Like,
right.
whereas when I did jujitsu and gi, especially since I'm a big, not a big guy, but I move sort of methodically and heavy and take my time. When I fight someone small, like if we're both small, like even when I did MMA and I fought small, like at 155, I I I my strength is my pressure, and I take my time and sort of like wear people out. And as long as I don't let those little guys move, then I'm not in trouble. But the technique for the smaller competitor is much higher. Like the technique is much higher at those small divisions, where they're almost like their dexterity and their sort of awareness is much higher than the big guys. It's just like you could win with three moves. You could do like a takedown, a guard pass, and a simple choke or an armbar
Right.
or whatever. Whereas like a smaller competitor who's more flexible would be doing all those fancy things like bolos and taking your back and doing some stuff that's like very dynamic. I think technique translates through all the divisions.
Hmm.
I just think it's a different game. The lighter you go, the more dynamic it gets. The heavier you go, it's like simplicity, but like I'm gonna say weight matters.
Absolutely. Yeah. The laws of the laws of physics don't lie. They apply all across the board. Absolutely. My next question for you is, as you mentioned, you started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in '06 and 2006, had your second heart surgery in 2013, and finally you got your black belt in 2022. What does achieving this goal mean to you, and what have you learned about yourself through this journey?
There's a lot of feelings. It's like almost like every time I have heart surgery, I start over. And the relationship I had through jujitsu was very much of a roller coaster. Uh, my belt promotion when I got my black belt was a surprise. So the emotions were super, super high because I had no clue that I was getting promoted. And my like the amount of work, like there was times when I thought, every time I had heart surgery, I thought I was going to quit. Every time I'm like, oh, I will never be able to train again. Doctors telling me you shouldn't train, all this stuff. It's like, man, my health, but I loved it so much. And every time I did the work, so going from purple to brown was transitioning from a competitor to a hobbyist. And then as a brown belt, kind of like enjoying the process of being a hobbyist and like just being with my friends and enjoying trying to enjoy it, enjoy the workouts and enjoy learning techniques and being mentally stimulated. And then when I finally got my black belt, I was like, man, the sheer amount of time and effort, it's like a tidal wave that goes over you. And I'm like proud of my picture when I got my black belt, but man, I had that you're crying, I'm not crying. Like it was a very emotional
Hmm.
experience. And I never thought that I would get my black belt. I thought I would just be a brown belt forever. And I was happy with it, but it was a surprise. It was a different. It means so much to me to share with the mat with so many different people, and I I am thankful for every single second that I had on the mat, even the hard times where I thought I would have to quit, and I just kind of learned like jujitsu is for everybody. You just have to kind of show up to class and do the work. And just the one lesson I would learn is to be a hobbyist sooner than later.
Mm.
Just from my own personal, I love competing, but I think the process would be a lot more enjoyable as a hobbyist, not putting pressure on myself and just kind of playing the game and not being such a scrappy guy, just going and playing and having fun. So when I got my black belt, it was amazing experience to me, and the amount of time you put in is it's like if you were a doctor, like you go to
Right.
school for 20 years,
Right.
like man, like so it's one of my greatest achievements in life. And I still don't have the words, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because earlier on you mentioned that in your family you're considered the black sheep of the family, and I've met many black sheeps of various families, and I've always found them to be the most interesting people, you know. But generally speaking, where I'm going with this is, would you say the this local grappling, combat sports, martial arts, whatever you want to call it, community, is that community your family as well?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that drew me to the martial arts community was was the relationship you have with your, so like my relationship with my father was not great. So like starting jujitsu and having an instructor and looking up to them as a role model, um, and people in the community, they like my family, where it's like, you'd go to barbecues with them, you would, go to tournaments with them, you would like share, movement. I used to be like a little bit of an oversharer and a little bit wild. So like, I'm thankful that I'm a bit more tame now, but
Hmm.
every person, like when I had my last surgery in 2013, I had people come visit me from different affiliations just to see me and say hello and boost my spirits. And this time I had to tell people, don't come visit me because I'm not in the hospital anymore. My friend Joe came to visit me and I already got discharged.
Wow.
And those people in the grappling and fight community, I use Facebook as a platform, but like, when I used to go to tournaments, even just the experience of talking to people, and I'm not shy. Those people who share the mat with me, I consider my family. Even my opponents, I consider to be like brothers to me or sisters to me. And then my coaches are like my coaches or coach. My instructors are like my family, like my father or my parent.
Hmm.
That's a thing going through my black belt is like I got to get my belts from the same people who promoted me all the way. There's only one. I didn't. It was a surprise, so I didn't get. I got. It was such a. I just remember getting from like going to get the Shark Tank with, and I'm like, holy man, and it's emotional. It's the whole experience is like my family.
Yeah, the element of surprise, I'm sure, added to the moment and made it even more special. And on the topic of family, I think and community, I think for people, regardless of what sport or discipline they're in, I think they gain a lot from being part of these communities. Obviously, and I think it's also relevant not just for young children and teenagers and all that, if they have the opportunity to be part of that sport and stay in the sport. Obviously, that community is a lot of support, and especially as you age, of course, it's important too because you hear all sorts of stories about people, seeking for help, be it mental health support or whatever support through sports. You know what I'm saying? So it's relevant in our time. I mean, as someone who reads a lot of these sorts of articles, you kind of sense that mental health seems to be the elephant in the room. I know I'm broadly speaking, but for a lot of these sports, a sense of belonging with their community and trying to attain a goal, if it's developing their game or just you know, trying to streamline into competition. Next question I have for you is a big one here because it seems that obviously injuries are common in all contact and combat sports, or in all sports. Quite frankly, you can get injured practicing a sport in competition, etc. So, and it's relevant, obviously, for hobbyists, recreationalists. It's definitely a reality for competitors. They compete injured and so on. But my question for you is, can grapplers and jiu-jitsu players in their late 30s or even early 40s and beyond still train without getting injured? Is that possible? And I ask this because when I bump into people here in Ottawa that are from the jiu-jitsu community, it seems that injuries are, especially for older folks. Sorry, if you're in your 30s, you're definitely not old. If you're in your 40s, you're not old. But you know, I'm just putting it out there that injuries are a reality, especially for people who've been doing this forever. Like, is it possible to train these sports without getting injured? And if so, how, in your opinion?
So, yeah, I think the secret to that is check your ego at the door. and tap early and fast. Injuries happen. It's just how severe the injuries are going to be. For me, I have never gotten, knock on wood, I have never gotten injured in training, but I've gotten injured at tournaments. And, you know, that's the difference. You can train when you're sore, but you can't train when you're injured. And I think as an older person, this is kind of something I'm figuring out now. I'm 40, I'll be 44 tomorrow, actually.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and I've had more injuries when I was a blue belt and a purple belt. Like I would get my shoulder wrecked and I would just kind of have to go to physio and take time, knowing when to take time off. And as I'm getting older, you're more prone to those injuries. The same as if you were like playing any other sport. I think the only thing I would say as you're getting older is try to don't be shy to sit around out, like rest when you need to rest. Uh, you know, rest when you need to rest. And when you're sick or you're injured, don't train. Like it sounds like, when you're sick, stay home, stay off the mat. You don't want to spread germs to your teammates. And also, you're not doing yourself any favors being on the mat when you're sick. If you're injured and your shoulder's messed up, or your knees messed up, or you have an injury, take care of it, and maybe just do the techniques that you can. And if it hurts, don't do it. But I would say if you're in your 30s to 40s to 50s, you're probably going to have some bumps and bruises and scrapes and be beat up sometimes. The trick would be to tap early, and also don't be shy to sit out around, or like maybe you have planned rest days. Like if you're a new beginner and you're like 40, you're like, I'm going to start jiu-jitsu and I'm a white belt. You might only go to class twice a week. And then you might roll one on, one off. So do a round in and then sit out around, and don't be shy to tap. If you don't tap and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to have an injury for sure. If you are a little bit more cautious and you don't know how to get out of an armbar and you tap, great. You get to continue the roll and learn. I think so. I think it's possible to answer the question. I think it's possible to be able to go to jiu-jitsu and not have a serious injury. But if you're a competitor, you're going to get injured eventually.
Right.
And then just make sure you take the right processes to heal before you get back into it. If you're a hobbyist, man, you could probably train forever and not get injured as long as you take care of your body, like eat properly, sleep properly, stay hydrated. Don't be shy to add rest days in. And I think it is possible not to have a major injury, but you're going to get beat up eventually. Like you're going to have some kind of problem, like, black eye here or some cauliflower ear here or something that will come up. It's just a matter of dealing with it in an appropriate way. And then I don't know if does that answer the question?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I remember a long time ago, this one coach would ask people who were like going way too hard whether they were training to go to the Olympics. I won't mention the coach's name, but he would stop them and say, "Are you going to the Olympics? Are you training to go to the Olympics?" Person would say, "No." Well, then you don't need to push that hard. And I mean it makes sense on so many levels from a business sense, in terms of like, you know, if you're running a gym, you don't want your beginners who are, let's say, white belts, as you described, 40-year-old white belts getting injured. It won't, you know what I mean? It's not a good experience for anyone, for them or for anyone. But it's also, I guess, the culture at a gym is important too, and the role of higher belts and coaches to kind of maybe remind some folks, because some people may not know how to just go lighter when they're rolling, especially with less experienced or beginners. But I want to move on to this next question here. Obviously, you're 3 weeks 3 weeks ago you had your surgery, as you mentioned, your third heart surgery, and you're in the rehab phase now. As you mentioned, you're walking every day, twice a day, and you're augmenting the minutes of walking per, I think it was per 1 minute or so, as you mentioned in our previous interview. This is our second interview, just to be transparent for folks. We spoke earlier, and then we redid the interview, and you got into a lot of the details in terms of your rehab phase and your post-surgery phase, that is. But I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts now about getting back on the mats? How long do you think it will take, if that is a plan? And are there any concerns with training jujitsu, or any new motivations or goals?
Yeah, I am already thinking. I like I said, I spent so much time on the mat and training, and I miss the people in the community. And I so with my new surgery and my new valve is mechanical. He fixed the hole in my heart. So my mechanical valve, I have to take blood thinners forever now. So competing is gone, and rolling, I'm going to have to be a little bit careful and kind of roll like train light all the time.
Right.
Because like if it's not that a risk it's going to damage my heart, but if you get like a elbow in the eye or you hit your head or something happens, you could get a brain bleed.
Wow.
So like the medication I'm on right now, it's high. So my INR is the rate that your blood like clots. So my INR is high, so I don't have any blood clotting, and the blood thinners will affect contact sports. So moving forward to jiu-jitsu in my new journey will be starting with, I love the training part of it. So I would love to be on the mat doing my gymnastical type of exercise, like front rolls and some shrimping and all those gymnastical type of warm up drills and the
Nice.
aerobic part of it. So
Mm.
that I am looking forward to being able to go and build some strength through calisthenics and be part of the team again or part of the community again. Uh, and I'm sure I can still do techniques, like learning new techniques. And my recovery, I suspect, will take about 6 months to a year. Uh, I'm not in a rush to get back on the mat. And then I
Right.
guess when it comes to, I love sparring and flow, like training. And this is a thing I transitioned from competitor to hobbyist. Now looking forward as a hobbyist, maybe looking forward to being a coach or an instructor.
Nice.
Uh, and also when I'm training with my, like being light, getting lighter for my health
Hmm.
reason. But when I get back on the mat, I see myself being able to roll with people that I trust. So, like, if you roll with a high belt and you're a high belt, you can kind of play like a chess match and like a roll, like sparring in super slow motion. So I'll probably have to avoid those athletic guys. But I see in the near future that I'll still be able to like play the game. I'll just have to pick people who I trust to that aren't going to go crazy and accidentally hit me. Um, you know, so I'll have to move at a slower pace. But I do see myself getting back on the mat and training at a slower, more controlled pace. Recovery, I know I'm not in a rush. I can barely walk right now. So right now my walks, like you said, I'm progressing 1 minute every time I walk. And today's workout, for example, is walking 25 minutes twice a day, and then some stretching until my chest and heart heal.
Mm.
So you know, I'll get back on the mat eventually, and I'm sure some of my friends I used to train with, they're not going to beat the crap out of me. I
They
hope.
better not. They better not, of course. No. And
Yeah.
please do
So,
take your time. Obviously, I think anyone who's listening to this, obviously, is probably going to echo the same thing. In addition to that, I'll quickly say, if you don't mind, I think you'd make an excellent coach. You know, with all those years in competition and training and so on. I'm sure, you know, with all that knowledge, you can definitely share it with future competitors or train them, you know, encourage them and hobbyists and so on. There's a ton of wealth and knowledge, and sometimes it's unfortunate when it doesn't get transferred over. You know what I'm saying? It's and shared with others. So I think coaching would totally be awesome for you. We can hear the passion in your voice for these sports, and I think it has a lot of value, you know, to be shared. Last question for you, Daryl. How has going through 3 surgeries and still pursuing jiu-jitsu shaped your perspective on life and your goals in the sport? I know it's a big one here.
It's okay. So what I realized for all the surgeries, for example, every surgery I've had has been a close call.
Wow.
The last surgery was a planned close call, so that was the first time I ever had a chance to kind of get ready for the surgery. Also, my perspective on life is short.
Mm,
You know, we're in like 300 years from now, no one's going to even remember me. You know what I mean? Like, or anybody, right?
right,
Like
exactly.
super famous, but in 300 years from now, no one's going to remember you. So, my perspective is to try to be here as long as I can,
Mm,
but also to do the things I love while I can. For example, my jujitsu perspective, since I've had all these health problems, is that like at one in 1 second, in 1 second, your athletic career could be finished. You could get into, you can get hit by lightning, something horrible could happen to you, and that's it for you. You know, like you might not be able to train. So I would say I'm going to continue to train my best and do what I can because something is always better than nothing.
mm,
And I think, you know, people should be, I'm going to work my hardest to be kind to everybody. I feel that there's so much negativity in the world.
yeah.
I just want to have fun and enjoy my life and try to make it better for everybody else. And when someone upsets me, I'm just going to try my best to like just be chill and not get over all worked up about nothing. Because like I said, that's you're only here for a short time,
Hmm.
and you want your impact to be a good one. You don't want to be known as a villain. You want to be known. For me, I want to be known as a hero in my own story, and I want to be able to be kind to everybody and help people progress. So, like, if I can make a difference to somebody or someone's scared to like try jujitsu, just try it and try something, whether it's any type of martial art that you want to do. It's mentally stimulating. And as you get older, the more mentally stimulating things you can do, I believe, keep you younger for longer. Always trying to learn. And since like life is short, you got to experience as much as you can while you're here. And I think those 3 close calls that I've had have really made me appreciate every single second that I have on this planet. So like tomorrow is my birthday and it's going to be like I
Wow.
made it 44 times around the sun.
Mm,
And I lived a pretty risky, like you know, I have 9 lives. So I'm hoping to have uh more decades and I'm looking forward to this new Valve. So like if you watch sci-fi, I kind of am looking forward to technology improving and all of these things where I could live with this Valve for another, like hopefully I'm only halfway or not even, you know, I'd like to, one of the goals I would like to be able to live to be 100, but still be able to like ride a bicycle and do things competently. So I just take one day at a time, and my perspective on life and jujitsu and grappling, it's so good for you. Um, it's so good for me, but I would like to share that experience with everybody and make sure that everybody, if everyone wants, I would love it if everyone trained jujitsu. I think it would be the greatest thing ever if everybody trained. But if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But I believe anybody can train, and anyone who's passionate about learning would try something. Uh, to challenge your intellectual self and to do something physical with your life. I think that's what I would say.
Wow, man. Well, happy birthday. I know your birthday is tomorrow, but I want to wish you a happy birthday today.
Oh,
Today's September 1st. And I must say, you have a remarkable story, and I think anyone who's listened to this interview, or anyone who knows your story, obviously, and knows how remarkable it is, and it's given us a lot of perspective and a lot of things to consider. And I hope you keep sharing. I think there's I'm putting on a different hat on when I say this. I think there's an audience for this beyond just jujitsu. I think and I don't mean to limit the topic of heart health. Obviously, you're an athlete who's dealt with some challenges, and you've overcome them. And I think that those sorts of stories have an audience, and I'm sure there are people within the jujitsu community who probably have something similar, and people outside of the jiu-jitsu community who could relate to it. So I think it's important to that we get to hear this, but also that you're open and sharing and communicating this. As I mentioned, you're posting your story, your progress on Facebook, and want to wish you all the best, my friend. Thank you very much for your time. This has been great, and have a wonderful Sunday.
Oh, I will, man. And thank you for having me. It's I'm definitely not shy, and I'm always willing to have a conversation about those things. So you enjoy your weekend, and thank you so much for having me on.